We hope you've got your calendars marked for December 16th because there are less than 90 days left for Avatar: The Way of Water. But before that, the first movie's coming back to cinemas on September 23rd with remastered visuals and audio. In this video, we've got updates on the sequel and more insight into the original from James Cameron himself. There's a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. First up, looking at Avatar 2's CGI reminds you how far technology has come. All you need to do is a side-by-side comparison of the original and the sequel. Even if you're not a VFX artist who can point out the nuances in the CGI, you'll realize just how good the sequel looks, and that's just from the teasers. The thing you need to know about first trailers, or in this case teaser trailers, is that movie studios only show you the shots that were completed at the time. No, it doesn't mean that the rest of the movie's incomplete. On the contrary, most of the work's already done by the time the trailer comes out, but the shots that are rendered first and are considered complete are the only shots that make it in the teasers. It gives directors and the VFX teams a chance to see audience reactions and figure out if they need to make changes to character designs, lighting, overall shot composition, and etc. Case in point, 2020 Sonic the Hedgehog. Remember the very first trailer that got booed the moment it was released? It feels like a fever dream now, right? Fans were horrified by the poor character design because, well, they massacred him. So Paramount and Sega went ahead and changed literally everything about him, and we're just thinking of the VFX artists who may have had to work a crunch schedule to make it happen. But why was it important to mention this? And more importantly, why did we remind you of the original god-awful Sonic trailer? Well, 8 words. Avatar 2 will look better when it's released. And after watching Marvel drop the ball with its CGI, the gorgeous world of Pandora will be a blessing. Next, will the sequel live up to the hype? James Cameron sure hopes so. We'll talk about the remastered version in a bit, but let's go over the concerns people had over releasing a sequel 13 years later. Avatar broke several box office records, and to this day, it's the highest grossing movie of all time when unadjusted for inflation. But if you're talking about inflation, then Avatar's surprisingly the second highest grossing movie of all time, and the first is Gone with the Wind. Believe us, we're just as shocked as you. Anyway, being the highest grossing movie is just a title that can be stripped away as quickly as you acquire it. Avengers Endgame did just that between July 2020 and March 2021, when Avatar overtook it again. Studios love playing their little games, but they tend to forget that a legacy as solid as James Cameron's doesn't need the title of highest anything. And of course, the biggest concern anyone, including James, has is whether the sequel will be culturally relevant again. After all, as the director says himself, our world's a fast-paced, nebulous thing. Things come and go faster than you can keep up, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. What's more, the pandemic has made things a lot worse for the cinematic experience. James agrees with this, and so do we. We're not saying that it's a bad thing, and that more people should have gone to the cinema when COVID was at its peak. We're simply stating that COVID had very real consequences on the movie industry. Everyone and their aunt wanted to stream things digitally because it's so much easier to do that. And as a result, in 2022, we're still not going to the cinema as much as we used to. It's just how it is, guys. As things get better around the world, things may or may not go back to pre-pandemic levels. And that's a big maybe. But still, even if James is worried, we're not, because we have an excellent example of how films can still break records. Not only does it feel like Tom Cruise's magnum opus, but it's also the highest grossing movie of 2022 so far. We were honestly so fatigued by Marvel's CGI fest that watching Maverick in the cinema felt like a breath of fresh air. We're not saying it didn't have CGI. On the contrary, there are plenty of VFX shots in there. We're just saying that we had no idea there were any at all. And that's the point of films like Top Gun or Avatar. They're meant to be watched in the cinema with friends and family. It's a whole event where you sit back and have an experience you'll remember for days, if not weeks. And when it comes to The Way of Water, James says that it's the type of film you'll regret not watching in the theater. Not to mention, the trailer got 148.6 million views within 24 hours of uploading. And before you say it only has 24-ish million views, hear us out. Most of us don't really watch a YouTube video the way the platform intends. We tap on a title, skip to the most viewed section, and then move on. Usually it's less than 30 seconds, and YouTube requires that you watch for more than 30 seconds in order for it to count as a view, but it'll still track the number of clicks and total views across a 24-hour period, whether or not you watched it for 30 seconds. So when Disney and 20th Century announced that Avatar 2's teaser got 148.6 million views within 24 hours, it told us that audiences still have a lot of love for James Cameron's stories. In a recent interview with the New York Times, the director explained that his personal experience with releasing sequels has been successful in the past. He released 1986's Alien 7 years after Ridley Scott's original, and he did the same with Terminator 2, releasing it 7 years after the 1984 hit, but he thinks he's overstayed his welcome in 2022. Movies didn't release as frequently as they did back in the mid-80s, and Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus weren't even dreamed about. So the only way you could watch a movie was to go to a cinema near you. But now we have more options options than we know what to do with, and it's just more convenient to wait 2 months for a movie to release on Blu-ray and watch it at home. So obviously, the director's concerned, but with the overwhelming response to the teaser and how much everyone loved the visuals and music, we're thinking that the sequel's gonna blow everything else out of the water. Let's look at how Kate Winslet broke a free diving record among the cast. She was already a badass for receiving an Emmy, an Oscar, a BAFTA, and a Golden Globe, but now she's got another honor on her belt. The woman held her breath for 6 minutes and 50 seconds while filming underwater scenes for Avatar 2. It kinda reminds you of Tom Cruise, doesn't it? Well, now you know he ain't the only badass in town. She, along with Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana, went through some seriously strenuous dive training to prepare for her role as Rono. Bailey Bass, who plays Soraya, Rono's daughter, in the movie, said that she managed 6 minutes and 30 seconds, while Kate did a full 20 seconds more. And if there's anything we know about holding your breath underwater for as long as physically possible, it's beyond painful. So we tip our hats to the cast of Avatar 2, but especially to Kate. Finally, you can now book your tickets for the original Avatar. It's coming back for the 3rd time in IMAX and 4DX, but this time it's remastered in a way that was meant to be seen back in 2009. The visuals got a 4K polish, which means that if Neytiri's skin wasn't crystal clear before, it will be now. And this brings us to cultural relevance again. You would think, why was there a need to spend millions of dollars on remastering a movie released back in 2009? Well, it has to do with carefully planned marketing. 13 years is a long time when it comes to sequels, and in order to build hype and guarantee as much revenue as possible, there needs to be some strategies in place. One strategy is to re-release the original for a limited 2-week release, so that old and new audiences can catch up on the story so far. The other strategy includes partnering with LEGO. They've launched an Avatar-themed LEGO set, including the Toruk Makto and the Tree of Souls. So if you're into LEGO like we are, you'll order yourself the whole set. Now, we can buy all the LEGOs in the world and rewatch the original 3 times in the cinema, but we've been hyped for Avatar 2 ever since its teaser dropped on YouTube. If the original is the bar to cross, then we think it's gonna do that and even more. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for watching. So are you heading to the cinema for the re-release? And do you think The Way of Water will become the highest grossing film of all time, beating its older brother? Tell us in the comments. And as always, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more Avatar news. See you in the next one.